let's talk about my knitting and crochet pet peeves. Hello everyone, Rochelle here, and I'm back to share some yarn goodness with y'all today. Okay, so let's talk about those things that just annoys you when it comes to knitting and crochet. All right, so up first, when patterns are not size inclusive. It is so annoying to me when there's a pattern that I really like and then I go and look at the pattern page and it only goes up to an XL. That is so frustrating. Let me know if you've ever experienced this. And even there's been some patterns that have come out in 2024, 25, 26 that are not size inclusive and they're extremely popular. It just blows my mind. But anyway, that drives me absolutely insane. To me, it just says that the designer doesn't want me wearing their clothes, doesn't want me wearing their designs because you didn't make it in my size. So, you know, and here's the thing. I can't expect everything to be in my size. There's no difference than going to the store and going through the clothing rack and not seeing my size. I get it. It's okay. I'm not trying to take it personally, but it is very annoying when I go to look at a pattern and then it's not in my size. So I know I could go up a hook size. I know I could go up a needle size, but I want patterns that are graded for my size. All right. Our next one is pattern photos where the model's hair covers up all the important details of the neckline and the shoulder. And I'm talking about like when the hair is all the way in the front and it's long and it's covering up the neckline and it's covering up the shoulder details. That drives me absolutely crazy because those are important details that I need to see. And that segues me into my third pet peeve, and that is the almighty French tuck. Okay, so in pattern photos, sometimes the designer will have models wear their shirts with the French tuck. And you know what? If it's one or two photos, that's fine. But I'm talking about all the photos. So all the photos have the model's hair covering up the details. All of the photos have a French tuck, because if all the photos have a French tuck, then I can't see the hemline details. I can't see the bottom of the body details. I want to see that. And so if it's one or two photos that's like that, that's perfectly fine. But if it's every single photo, oh my gosh, that annoys me so much. And another thing too, let me know if any of these annoy you. Okay, up next, I don't like seeing crochet mass produced in stores for cheap. It is so annoying. Here's the thing. If you go into the store and there's a crochet top and that top is $10, okay? Retail $10. Here's the question. How much is the crocheter that made that garment actually making? Because here's the thing, there are no crochet machines. So if something is crocheted in the store, that means it was handmade. Now, of course, there are some machines out there that are actually knitting machines, but they can do stitches that mimic crocheting. I have seen that, but I'm talking about garments that actually are crocheted and they're only like $10 in the shop. And so I'm like, okay, how much did the actual crocheter make? You know, especially when you go into the store. Like I've gone into the store and seen tops that are crocheted for like $5. Okay, how much did the actual crocheter who made that garment by hand, how much were they paid to make that garment? Yeah, extremely annoying. Okay, another annoying thing in the crafting community is the whole synthetic versus natural debate. Oh my gosh, we're over it. We're over it. Okay, look. If you want to use natural fibers like wool and cotton, do you. It's okay. But if you want to use synthetic fibers like acrylic, it's fine. Use whatever you want to use. That has just been an old age debate forever, and it's time to put it it's time to put it to rest. Okay, put it to rest. Okay, so the next one is not being able to sell finished products from a pattern. That is so annoying to me because, well, let me just first of all say, don't mass produce a pattern like the pattern itself, okay? That is stealing. We do not want to take someone else's pattern and then start selling it. We do not want to do that. That's not what I'm talking about. But what I'm talking about is if I buy a pattern, or even if it's a free pattern, but let's just say I buy a shawl pattern, okay? I make the shawl. Then I decide later on down the road, you know what? This shawl really doesn't fit my style anymore. I think I want to sell it. So I go on, Depop, Etsy, Amazon, eBay, whatever, and I decide to sell my finished shawl. I see nothing wrong with that. I've already bought the pattern, okay? What harm am I doing by selling something made from the pattern? I don't know. I know this one might be a little bit controversial, and I would really love to know what you all think of this, but it is so annoying when you make a pattern or you buy a pattern and then you're reading through the pattern, and then at the end of the pattern it says you can't sell items made from this pattern. Like, for example, a lot of people do craft shows. So let's just say they buy a hat pattern and they want to make the hats and then sell them in a craft show. But if the designer doesn't want you to sell any items made from the pattern, then you can't do that. I don't know. Look, first of all, I am barely a designer. And so I know for the things that I design, I don't mind if a person makes things from my pattern and then sells them. That doesn't bother me at all. Of course, I don't want you selling my pattern because that would be stealing, but I don't mind if you make the hats. You can make 50 hats and then go sell them. Doesn't bother me at all. But anyway, that is definitely a pet peeve of mine. Okay, this next one really grinds my gears. When people say that knitting and crochet are the same thing, here's a PSA. Knitting and crochet are not the same things. They're two different skills. One requires a hook. The other one requires needles. They're two different things. And I've actually had somebody try to debate me in the comments one time saying that knitting and crochet is interchangeable. No, it's not. Okay, they're two different skills. And you know what? The amazing thing about it is both skills can be used to make beautiful creations. I knit and I crochet, and I would never use them interchangeably. Now, that's not to say that in some languages, there may not be a word for crochet. And so in that sense, sometimes people may use them interchangeably. I understand the language issue. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when people say the actual skills themselves are the same thing. No, they're not. Okay, also, I didn't bring it with me, but here's the annoying thing. So I watch a lot of like knitting and crochet YouTube channels and videos and stuff. And it is so annoying when someone has a retractable tape measure and they don't press the button when they pull out the tape. Because if you don't press the button, like if you just yank on it, it makes this cracking noise that drives me insane, okay? The button is there for a reason. Press the button, then pull the tape. It's not difficult, but oh my gosh. It drives me insane, that cracking noise when they just rip it out of the tape measure. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay. The next one. Oh, this one recently happened to me. It is so annoying when glue gets stuck on your yarn. And a lot of times it happens when the manufacturer is trying to tape down the end. So there's there's two ends to a ball of yarn. So there's the center pull and the outside pull. And sometimes the yarn manufacturer will take that outside pull in and slide it into the yarn label and glue it down. I've seen that happen before. Also, sometimes, let's see, what's another example of when it gets stuck? Oh yeah, so sometimes if the yarn mill is sealing up the yarn with the yarn band, sometimes the yarn gets stuck in there and gets glue on it. It is so annoying. And a lot of times, like, that glue is not water soluble, and y'all, it will not come off. And sometimes you have to actually cut that section out of the yarn. So let me know if that has ever happened to you. Okay, up next we have the beloved factory knots. So factory knots are super annoying, but they are sometimes a necessary evil. And I actually just did a video talking about factory knots and why we have them, so definitely check that out. But yeah, factory knots are sometimes a necessary evil. Sometimes you just like have to cut it out and keep it moving. Let me know, do you cut your factory knots out or do you leave them in and you keep going? But yeah, especially like when you're in the rhythm, you're knitting, you're crocheting, factory knots just, it disrupts the rhythm of your flow. It just, yeah, oh, it's so awful. But yeah, I did some research and check out that video. I'll try to leave it linked in the end screen at the end, but check out that video and learn why factory knots are sometimes necessary. Okay, the next one is when yarn splits mid-stitch. Oh my gosh, I'm dealing with this right now actually. I am working on a crochet top and the yarn is splitting. And that's terrible because when you're crocheting or knitting, those strands split, the plies split, and so you don't make a complete stitch when you're working. And sometimes that can leave part of your stitches hanging down because you didn't pull up all of the plies of yarn, and that is so annoying. Oh my goodness, I don't know what makes yarn splitty. Maybe that's another little research project that I can do. But yes, yarn splitting is so annoying. I really don't know what can be done with it. I think it may have to do with whether it's an S twist or a Z twist. And sometimes depending on whether you're crocheting or knitting, maybe one stitch or the other may cause the yarn to split or start turning the other way. So yeah, that is something that I have heard of. But either way, regardless of why it happens, it is annoying. Okay, yarn barf. We all love yarn barf. Actually, we don't. So yarn barf, if you're not familiar with yarn barf, is basically when you pull the center pull of yarn and half the skein comes out. It is so annoying. It's awful. And that's one of the reasons why I pull from the outside, because of the yarn barf, and the yarn gets tangled and it's just a mess, and I just don't want to deal with it. And so yeah, yarn barf is the worst. All right, also twisting your work in the round. So let's just say you've knitted or crocheted 100 stitches and you have to join to the first stitch. When you make that first chain, oh well, it depends on if you're knitting or crocheting, but let's just say you join to the first stitch. Then you decide, okay, let me go ahead and do the first row, and you get back around again, only to realize that you have twisted your stitches. And sometimes in crochet, you can finagle it a little bit and twist the stitches back around to make it work. But a lot of times you can't fix it. And especially in knitting, you just have to rip that thing all the way back out and start over. And so that is so annoying. Okay, also, people interrupting you while you're trying to count. Let me tell you something about me. If someone interrupts me while I am counting, I just count louder. That's how I do that. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how I do. And it's not to be rude, but it's like my attention span is so short already that if I am in the middle of counting and then someone starts talking to me, oh my gosh, it throws me off, especially when I've been counting really high. So yes, that just drives me absolutely insane. Okay, the next one, playing yarn chicken and losing. Have you ever lost a yarn chicken? Do you need help? If you need help, blink one time. Oh my gosh. And here's the thing. When you are making a project, it is so important that you purchase enough yarn to complete the project. But sometimes it just doesn't work out. No matter how much you try to plan, it just doesn't work out, and you end up losing at Yarn Chicken. And I recently lost at Yarn Chicken. I was making a bucket hat that I'm designing, and I was literally like, I don't know, maybe 20 stitches from the end, and I ran out of yarn. So annoying. So it does happen. All right, our next one are dye lots that do not match that should match. Now, I'm not talking about hand dyed yarn. I'm not talking about that. I am talking about commercially dyed yarn that have the same dye lot number, but yet they're different colors. And the sad thing about it is, most of the time you don't realize that they're different colors until you have finished your project, or either you've gotten so far in your project that you can see that line where the yarn is different. Oh my gosh, that's so annoying. Now, when it comes to hand dyed yarn, a lot of times you don't necessarily have dye lot numbers. For me, as someone who hand dyes yarn, it's really difficult because each skein is going to look a little bit different, even if they're dyed together in the same pan, in the same pot. So my advice would be to alternate your skeins. But when it comes to commercially dyed yarn, if both dye lot numbers are the same, you're expecting it to be the same color. So when it's not, that is super, super annoying. Okay, so the next one is paid patterns with typos or errors, especially if it's in a book. The thing is, human error is inevitable, so it will happen. And, you know, I've never created a huge pattern where I've had that issue. I try to get people to test my patterns, but I just feel like it's something that happens with human nature. We can't catch every little detail, every little mistake every time, but either way, it is annoying. Okay, the next one is losing my stitch markers, my hook, my knitting needles in the sofa. It's like 1 minute they're there, and then the next minute they're gone. It's like my needles, hooks, and stitch markers just go off into another dimension. It is so annoying. Oh my goodness, it's amazing how they disappear. And I'm like, I just had it, and then I start doing the pat down, you know, just trying to look for it, and they're not there. They're not there. Okay, another thing that's super annoying is when non-crafters say mean things to crafters. And I actually done an entire video on this called Things Not to Say to Knitters and Crocheters, and I'll try to link that video as well. But, you know, don't be rude. Don't be rude. And most of the time, it's the people that don't knit, don't crochet, don't sew, don't embroider. Those are the people that a lot of times don't understand the time and the effort that goes into making projects. And so definitely check out that video where I elaborate more on things that people say. Okay, the next one is dropping stitches and not noticing till like 10 rows later. This recently happened to me. I am knitting the Une sweater, and with the Une sweater, you have slip stitches at the beginning of the rows. And I dropped a slip stitch probably 8 rows down, and I had to pick it back up. And I had never picked up slip stitches before, so I'm still not sure if I did it right. My stitch count is back to the right amount, but oh my gosh, that was so annoying. And I was so scared that I was gonna have a hole in my work. So yeah, that is just so annoying. Dropping stitches. It's just terrible. And that's in knitting, but even in crocheting, you might make a mistake and you don't see it until like 10 rows later. You look down and there's a mistake, and you're like, oh my gosh. You either have the choice to rip it out or keep going. You just have to make that choice, and that is a personal choice. Okay, so let's talk about what I am wearing. I am wearing the Toaster Tee designed by Rebecca Clow, and I have done an entire video about this, so I will leave my Ravelry page linked below with the video link in it. But I love this. It's just a nice classic black tee, and I love this. I believe this is a discontinued yarn, but it is a merino mix. It's a merino acrylic mix, and it feels amazing. And I'm so sad that this yarn is discontinued, but anyway, that's what I'm wearing. So this was a fun video. Let me know, what are your knitting and crochet pet peeves? Definitely share with the class. I can't wait to read them. All right, y'all. So let me know what you worked on while watching, or did you just chill? I love reading you all's comments. And also feel free to click that like button, that notification bell, and subscribe. Thank you all so much for your support. I really do appreciate it. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, bye.